Hey guys, Nick here, and today we're going to talk about our 15th anniversary event ship, the Garrett Dreadnought Cruiser class. So guys, I'm going to start off. I'm going to try and keep this as short as I can, but these build videos can take a long time. Yeah, first off, I want to say this is probably the best event ship we've ever had. Hands down, especially for me being it's a tank. It is fantastic. Trait, console, looks, you know, the way it flies, just what it gives you, fantastic. I think the artist team knocked it out of the park. I think the system team knocked it out of the park. I think there's not much else they could have given us from a free ship. It's so good. All right, guys, now to the build. As I'm just sitting here in a patrol, guys, I just want to say it again. I think the Deca team. I don't know if it's a mix of Deca and Cryptic, but I saw on the socials that Pundus was the designer, and I apologize in advance if Deca do see this. I don't know who the systems person was who made the console and trait, but I and the bridge officer layout, guys. I think you knocked it out of the park with this one for an event ship. It is 10 out of 10 for me. I couldn't have asked for anything better, especially the way it looks and just everything. Could have been ugly, and I still would have given it a high marks. But the fact that it looks like it's a cool ship, the trait's cool, the console's cool. It's got some hangar bays and just everything it provides. I love it, man. So, guys at Deca, if you hear this, thumbs up from me and everybody else watching the video. Get this tank. Sorry, get this ship. Make your tank builds on it, and have some fun because it's a beast. And there's the seating it has provides some really cool options. Anyway, to the build, guys. It's a command to command with a track fire. I'm gonna make a tank. Similar to my more recent styles, but some different adaptations from the last few months that come into play here, guys. So we're starting off with our 4 Bowl anti-proton beam arrays. They're not rolled correctly, but they should be rolled as damage times 4 crit D and damage. We are running our dark matter quantum torpedo to pair with the 2-piece for the Lorca's custom fire controls. Next up, from our deflector impulse warp and shields, we have the non-baryonic matter deflector array from the Discovery Legends reputation, the prevailing innervated impulse engines from the competitive reputation, the mycelial harmonic matter antimatter core from the Discovery Legends reputation, and the Tilly Reviews pending modified shield. I run the 3-piece there from the Discovery Legends reputation, one for the 2-piece for the plus 120% hull regeneration, and the 3-piece for the mycelial lightning. Your first weapon attack against each target fires a mycelial energy bolt at the target, dealing basically 6,000 electrical damage. Scaling with your max hull. Tanks have a scaling generally with threatening stance or history. Remember, your hull's always going up. So the later on in the content you're doing, the more that hit will be doing. And that's an instant threat grab normally. You come along and that tag from the first hit is quite potent to just grab the threat straight away from someone. And my aft weapons, I have the omnidirectional Bowl linked sentry anti-proton beam ray from the Lobby store to pair with the Bowl linked sentry coordination matrix console for the 2-piece, which is plus Bowl. I think it's the Bowl refractions do 100% bonus damage, and other anti-proton weapons also gain Bowl refraction. That's how it allows me to use the Herald Omni at the back here. The middle, for a bit of a test, I'm using the kinetic cutting beam. I'm not exactly I'm thinking this is more of a I'm lazy. I have it on the build still, but I leave it on the build. I don't think it's actually giving me that much, but it's making sure that my rear weapons are all firing at the same time. And I'm still being getting great threat numbers from this tank and great damage numbers from this tank, so I'm gonna leave it on. It's working, so I'm not gonna argue with it. And last but not least, the omnidirectional Herald anti-proton beam array. This is from an event several months ago. And the reason I'm running this, everybody, is the 2.5% chance for 7% bonus energy damage to self, stacking 3 times. So if you do get every single proc, it is plus 21% bonus energy weapon damage. So making you do more damage, making you do more threat, and making sure your teammates are still alive at the end of the TFO is always nice. Next up, our devices. Most of the time, these are pretty irrelevant for tanking, but I always like to keep some deuterium surplus to make sure I can move around. If I want to do as much damage, I run some energy amplifiers from the R&D beam store. The Temple Negotiator from our Delta reps is always nice. And a Kobayashi Maru transponder. Alright guys, now our consoles. So recently in Stowe, a lot of us, thanks to Mara, Spencer, and a couple others that have in the build Discord have done a lot of theory crafting around this high cooldown meta that we're in right now. I've been sort of testing it with the tank, and I'm gonna say I've been having a lot of success because like when you can have 100% uptime on your adaptive emergency systems and 100% uptime on your particle conversion matrix from the Guardian, and you can have 100% uptime like soon to be on the coordinated engagement solution from the Guardian, and then you have all these traits that are feeding into you, and then your damage is into your healing. It makes these tanks do a lot of damage and actually also have a lot of survivability. I have a friendship that, I mean, it does way too much damage for a tank. It does like 1,000,000 DPS in a hive. But the thing is unkillable. It is a absolute brick. It is fantastic. And the video will come soon when I can get off my ass and record it. But I thought, this is just dropped. Got to get this one out. But this is the idea behind these ones right now. It's sort of a balancing act of, where you get your damage from, where you get your survivability from. But this one has been working rather well. I would say it's a little bit more on the damage side than it is on the survivability side compared to the friendship. But it is a lot of fun. Alright guys, first up we have the Dynamic Power Redistributor module from the Atlas prototype Dreadnought Cruiser as a promo ship. Next up, the aforementioned Adaptive Emergency Systems from the Engineering flagships. Next up we have the Coordinated Engagement Solution. That is from the Garrett Dreadnought Cruiser, everybody, so you must have this ship to have this console and do your event. So if you, like me, and bought it out, you'll have it already. If not, you'll get it in, I want to say, about 17 days now when you finish your event. Next up, we have the Subspace Fracture Tunneling Field from the Voven event summer ship 6 months ago. It's not, is it more than 6 months ago now? Is it a year ago? I forget. Particle Conversion Matrix from the Guardian or the Mirror Guardian in the C-Store. The Baul Linked Sentry Coordination Matrix from the Lobby Store. The Ion Storm Generator from the Baran. The Antimatter Interweave from the Obina. The Shield Absorptive Frequency Generator. The Fakiri Torment Engine from the Mission... That's not the right tab. From the Mission, from the Klingon War Arc. I want to say it's Leap of Faith. Yep, from Leap of Faith, everybody. 2 energy protomatter, energetic protomatter matrix infusions. So we call them these in the colloquial term colony consoles, because you get your Spire consoles for the damage, you get your isomags, and now these are colony consoles. So if you hear someone say colony consoles, they're generally referring to these healing consoles. There are a 25% every time you use a firing mode to grant a heal. I have 2 of them, so I have a 50% chance to get a heal when I hit a firing mode. So I have 2 firing modes, so hopefully every time I hit either one of them, I get a heal. And last but not least, in the console slot, Lorca's custom fire controls for a damage boost, and the 2-piece with the Dark Matter Quantum. And in my 1 hangar bay, the Elite Type 7 shuttle for the debuff they provide. Alright guys, I'll just give you a quick rundown, like on my general thought process on the build on the console. So DPRM is your best single target heal in the game. Adaptive Emergencies is your consistent buff of resistance rating and damage. So with the cooldown sort of build I was talking about earlier, this having a 30-second uptime and us having so much cooldown reduction, we can then have this up the entire time. So instead of it being a 30-second buff, up every minute and a half, or 2 minutes, not a minute and a half. That's 25% uptime. But with all the cooldown reduction we have, with unconventional systems and the Woven console that also reduces cooldown reduction on universal consoles, we can have this up 100% of the time. Same with the coordinated engagement solution. When this gets fixed, we will have 100% uptime. The particle conversion matrix, same again. It says it's got 20 seconds, but that increases when you get a stack, so it refreshes and refreshes and refreshes. So you can have very high uptime on this. And this is a blast from the past that's coming back in everybody. It's 75% shield resistance, 100 Cat 1 and 100 Cat 1 energy and 100 Cat 1 exotic. So you end up getting a nice little damage boost and a nice shield resistance boost 100% of the time with this console. Next up, we have our bowl. The bowl is there just to make sure our refraction, the thing that's generating threat in a wider area than our 10Ks, is doing a lot of damage. Ion Storm Generator is for the plus 500% threat generation that it's providing. The Obina is here for basically damage, because I don't really drop hull, but if you do, it's here for its passive as well. The fact that you can have up to you can have up to 600 category 1 damage resistance rating. So the lower you get, the more resistance rating you get. So if you start dropping, you become ultra tanky. The shield absorptive frequency generator, otherwise known as the Valdor console from the tier 3 Valdor or the legendary Valdor, is here as the passive. When you're shooting your weapons, you get a 200% heal on a 2.5% proc chance per weapon shot. So most of the time, if you're hitting for 20,000, it's going to heal for 40,000. And if you look at my shields, I only have 20,000 shields per facing. So every I think it works out that if you have 8 weapons, you're getting 2.5. So you're getting a 20% chance per cycle. So every 5 cycles, you're getting a decent little heal. And if you have a bit of fire cycling haste, you're getting a heal every couple of seconds. So your shields go down, your shields go up. Your shields go down, your shields go up. And it's just a really awesome effect. The Torment engine, it was here for... Apologies, sorry, my throat's getting a little dry. The Torment engine is here for a damage increase on my Dark Matter, my Entropic Rider that I'm running for my Temporal specialization, and my Baul Refractions to make this a bit more of a damage tank. My Colony consoles are here just as a base heal and base damage buff, and so is my Lorcus Custom Fire Controls. Guys, and before I change screens, I just want to quickly talk about the Mastery package. I'm a little bit out of order, but I still want to mention it. This is probably the only thing that I would give this not a bad grade at all. Like, if you want to say, this would be like an A- on a grading for a tank. Rapid repairs, regenerating 1.25% of your current hull every 3 seconds in space, and it's twice when you're out of combat. So you're getting some hull regen, always very nice. You're getting energy and radiation damage resistance rating, very nice. Crit chance, nice for your damage. And hull points, very nice. So the only reason I give this like an A- is I like my tanks to have the double resistance rating for kinetic and I want to say exotic damage. But it's like, so you look here, like my kinetic here is 36% sitting, like radiation and physical, they're a little bit lower. But once you get everything rolling, you'll be more than, so like I sit here and if I hit all my buffs, you look at everything, it's still a few percent lower, but at that 70 to 80% resistance rating, plus my attract fire, threatening stance, you're getting very high in your resistance rating, so you're not really gonna notice it. Anyway, guys, next up, my standard skill tree. I will sit here just a moment if you want to take a photo of it. This is the skill tree I run for every single one of my builds on my main, and this is my main character. So my DPSs, my supports, my tanks, my EPG builds, my jelly builds, my random builds. I run this skill tree for all of them. And for my specializations, I'm running Intel Officer Primary, Temporal Operative Secondary. Intelligence Officer is the main reason the main reason I run this is for the space flanking, so plus 5% all damage when hitting the enemy's rear flank, plus 10% bonus damage, minus shield drain, plus crit severity, plus crit chance when hitting the enemy's rear arc. And for Intel Fleet, 2 team plus 5% shield pen plus 5 armor pen for 30 seconds. And if you have multiple people running this, you should have 100% uptime on this in a group. And for Temporal Operative Secondary, the main reason I run that is for Entropic Rider. When firing energy weapon damages, you get a 2.5% chance for 1900 physical damage every second for 1 second. So these are called dot tanks. Entropic Rider is a big part of that. With Kima Sight and the Torment Engine, Entropic Rider actually does a fair bit of damage for me. So it helps with my dot tank. With the barrel fractions bouncing all around, I put a dot on the target, and it then sits there, and I generate threat even though I'm like 20 kilometers away. Alright guys, now to our starship traits and our personal space traits. First up, we have a good day to die. A good day to die allows us to use our go down fighting at any hull capacity, providing a extremely large damage boost and a damage resistance rating boost. So normally this has to be, you have to be below 50% hull, but with this trait, you could use it at any hull and it treats you that you're at 50%. So you get a really nice damage boost and resistance rating boost. And with enough cooldown reduction and crits with the personal trait Intelligent Agent Attaché, you can have this up almost 100% of the time. Next up, we have Duelist Fervor. When you or a teammate kills something, gain 5 all damage, 5 accuracy, stacking 3 times. That's 15 accuracy and 15 all damage resistance rating. This is again a personal space trait from the Infinity Lockbox. Next up, we have the Liberated Borg Kingdom Nanoprobe space trait from the 14th anniversary bundle from a year ago. The main reason I use this was for the 20% kinetic, 20% kinetic resistance rating that grows every 5 seconds, and the 20 crit severity. So I just wanted to make sure I was filling that gap of not having some kinetic resistance rating in my mastery package, so I thought I'd run this to make sure I'm getting that. And it seems to be working quite nicely. Next up, we have Fragment of AI Tech, plus 18.3% energy weapon damage based on control, and plus 50 control. So guys, yeah, this is all, most of these traits are all about my damage, making me do more damage, more control, and so on. Next up, we have Fireball Escape. So being that it doesn't have as much kinetic resistance rating, I wanted to have Fireball Escape on for the immunity to warp core breaches. If you get hit by a warp core breach, you're immune to the damage, and then you get 531% turn rate and 531% flight speed, so it's a nice little boost. Plus 25 defensive rating and plus 20 crit severity. So it is a nice little trait to make sure you don't get one-shot by warp core breaches. Next up, as I mentioned before, we have Intelligent Agent Attaché. On weapon critical strikes, restore 2% of your captain ability recharge. So with not an engineer, and it would say comparatively, an engineer and a psi have some good defensive captain abilities. Attacks are about damage, so you want to make sure we're getting our damage ones back, and that's feeding into our Valdor, and then we're killing things. So we might not be quite as tanky or have as much survivability as an NG or a Psi, but I think it's a better combo because we have the survivability through our consoles and our gear and our specializations, and the attack carries a nicer balance with a lot more damage. Next up, we have Terran targeting systems for plus 15% crit severity. It does give you a 10% slow when you're crit hit, but you never notice the speed debuff. And for our cooldown reduction method, we have the Boimler effect from the Lobby Store. 17.5% chance to recover the recharge time of all other bridge officer abilities and up to their shared character cooldown. So basically, if you guys don't know what that means, I see as I hit emergency powder weapons, it's on a 40-second cooldown. We hit abilities, and I'm getting extremely unlucky here, and I'm not going to get a proc. But we keep hitting abilities, and you'll see it go down There you go. As I hit emergency powered engines, it went from 20 something to 15 seconds. A boy mode proc happened, and then it's come around, and I've got a proc, and it's down to its global cooldown, so it's to its lowest possible cooldown, and then everything else would have had the same. So then we go, you just keep going back around until you get procs again, and same again. This build, that's probably not being in combat. I don't have access to many of my abilities, so I would get more by being in combat, but it's just to show how it works. Next up, we have unconventional systems. Using a control bridge officer ability gives -7 to recharge on my universal consoles. So, being a temporal ship for the bridge officer stations, this allows me to have access to many low cooldown uncon procs with Heisenberg amplifier and chronometric inversion field, which is also quite a useful ability. It's got a minus flight speed and minus damage in the target area of the field, so it's also very nice. So it's allowing this to have quite a lot of cooldown reduction and also having quite the useful abilities at the same time. And last but not least, Breen Shield Tunneling. So it's one of the newer traits from the Breen Lockbox. Not actually called the Breen Lockbox, but that's what I'm calling it, the Partners in Crime Lockbox. It just got a, as I just take it off, it just got a nerf, so now its stats are -10 shield capacity, -15 shield pen, and, not minus, it's -10 shield capacity, +15 armor pen, +15 shield pen. So it's making me do more damage at the... Sorry, it's making me do more damage. In return, it's taking away 10% of my shield capacity. But I think that's a worthy trade because it's not a shield tank. The only thing I'm using that's helping my shields is the Valdor console, and the Valdor console isn't going to really matter because the proc you're going to get is way more than your shields anyway. So it's like your shields are going to go down, it's going to proc it to full. Yeah, if it's 19k, if it's 21k, it doesn't really matter where they're at. I would much rather have the plus penetration to your weapons. Next up, our Starship traits. We have Emergency Weapon Cycle. On emergency power to weapons, -50 weapon power cost, and +20% fire cycling haste, so making my weapons fire 20% faster, cooldown and 20% faster, and they don't cost me as much weapon power, so I'm doing more damage and I'm firing faster. Next up, we have Cultural Conquest. Weapon firing modes apply 25% damage mode, dealing weapon damage to foes that have been debuffed. Auto control or controlled U improves that bonus to 50%. So if I have more firing modes, it gives me up to, I think right now, 100% Cat 1 energy weapon damage. If I was to say have Scatter Volley, I would get 150% because I'm a tank. I'm always getting hit or controlled. So it gives me quite a nice little damage boost, but right now I'm at 100%. Maybe down the line we can trade off something, maybe trade chemo for another firing mode to proc that a little bit more. Next up, we have Superior Area Denial. When activating Fire at Will or Scatter Volley, grants Fire at Will and Scatter Volley to your hanger pets, and they upgrades your energy weapons to do -30 or damage resistance rating to those targets. So I am debuffing everything alongside my Type 7s so that they have less resistance rating and they die faster. Yeah, this is probably one of the traits you could trade off, but for the time being, I really enjoy making sure that every target that I'm meeting is severely debuffed, meaning I'm doing more damage, meaning my teammates are doing more damage, meaning I don't have to tank quite as long. Next up, we have Entwined Tactical Matrices from the Gagarin. This is our firing mode extender. So, if guys, the golden rule of energy weapons, you always want a firing mode extender. For fire at will, they're really not great options, but for the day-to-day user, Entwined Tactical Matrices is the go-to choice. When hitting a torpedo spread, you gain fire at will. When hitting fire at will, you gain torpedo spread. So the idea is you rotate between fire at will and torpedo spread. If you do that every 10 seconds, you would have 100% uptime on firing fire at will. But I have them on my spam bar, so I don't. I probably, I think I'm in the 80s or 90s, but you still look and I have 80 to 90% attacks in on every TFO, so I'm not too worried about being too careful with it. Next up, we have History Remember. This is probably one of those two traits alongside Entwined Tactical Matrices right now that is a must-have on your build. It is the big threat generation increase that we need while we have Threatening Stance on. So up to 30 stacks of 10% threat generation means that you have a 300% threat generation increase while this trait is running and is fully stacked. Alongside 30 all damage, 30 hull regen, 30 maximum hull to boost your stats while you're tanking. Next up, we have Thunder Run from the Constitution 3 or the Neo Connie. We have 20% bonus beam damage plus defensive scales with speed. So right now I'm sitting at 0. If we move along, so I see it's hard to tell, but you can see I'm moving in the game. And we have more increase. So as you're moving around, you have plus defense. So it makes it harder for them to be critting you. Next, and last but not least, if in threatening stance, plus 150% threat generation. So increasing my threat, increasing my damage, which is then in part increasing my threat generation. And last but not least, Together We Stand. This is the trait that comes from the Garrett. I think it's quite a nice team-wide survivability trait because to yourself and allies within a 5-kilometer radius, plus 35% hit points and plus 35% shield capacity if you have enough allies and self in that area. So basically, if your entire team is grouped up in this little area, you'll have that nice boost to everybody's hull and shield capacities, so meaning everybody's a little bit more tanky. Next up, my space reputation. Advanced targeting systems for our crit severity. Advanced hull reinforcement. So main reason I'm running this, everybody, is because this doesn't have quite the tanky mastery package, so this is to counteract that, to make sure our damage resistance rating at base is a little bit higher. We have magnified firepower for plus bonus weapon damage, so this is back to we want more damage. Tyler's duality for plus 6.1% crit chance. It will end up being 7.5% when my hull is over 200,000. And precision for plus 5% crit chance. And my active space reputation, anti-time, entanglement suite, quantum singularity manipulation, refractoring Tetryon cascade, deploy sensor interference, which I should almost never run on a tank. You really should run like force challenge or tethered non-baryonic asteroid, and biomolecular shield generator. So basically, guys, on a tank, I would only hit anti-time, biomolecular shield, and refracting Tetryon cascade. You might, if you like to try and drag things around the map, you could use tethered asteroid and force challenge, but most of the time you're not going to get a lot of use out of them. And to our bridge officer station, guys, I want to say this again, Decker and anyone who's listening, this was a 10 out of 10 sort of ship. This was fantastic what you did with it, so congratulations, guys. I applause from me and appreciation, and hopefully it comes through that I really mean that. Like, I was surprised when I saw this the bridge officer station when it was showed off the first time. I was like, wow, that has to be like a joke that's the event ship, because that is way too good for us. This is like dreams come true. Now I'm telling everybody on my stream and that I hang out with, get the Garrett, make your tanks on the Garrett, because it is fantastic. First up, we have a Lieutenant Commander Universal with a temporal op station. So this is allowing us to have very unique stations. So we can have temporal abilities for our uncon procs, but then allowing us also to run Gravwell. Say you wanted to do like some torp build, that means you could run uncon procs, but then still have a torp station there, like attack, and you would still allow you to run a bit more versatile stations, which is really cool to see. We have a Ensign Universal, a Lieutenant Commander Tactical Station, I think that's something some people don't think of is you really don't need a lot of tactical stations on these. About 4 on any given build is about the max you would ever want. On some, it's even less. On some tanks, I only have 2. That's all I want. Like on my freedom class, my friendship class, not my freedom class. On my friendship, I have 2. I have fire wheel and I have torp spread, and that's it. And the build still is fantastic. Next up, we have a commander engineering command station. So for most tanks, this is going to be a given because you want it to be a more engineering heavy ship so that it has a track fire and it has a commander command so that you have suppression barrage 3. And last but not least, a lieutenant science. This at the minimum is perfect. You know, it gets you some good uncommon procs. If you don't want to do a universal, unconventional systems build, you could have some polarized hull or hazard emitters to provide some science buffs. But guys, this is my bridge officer station. Go over it quickly. For a tank, I have a checklist. Can it run suppression barrage? Does it have gravity well? And it has a track fire. The rest is all just personal preference. So my choices here, guys, I'll explain real quick. I wanted this to be a bit more of a damage tank. So with fire at will, it's not like beam overload or scatter volley. You don't really need to have fire at will 3. So you get more damage out of having torpedo spread 3 combined with Chemosight and then also the torment engine. So I'm getting a lot of damage out of those combos to build my dots up. So I have fire at will 1. I have attack pattern beta 1 to provide debuff. And also I should have the pairing of Agent Neural. When under attack pattern beta, each weapon fired restores 0.2% of your max hull. So I'm getting some healing when running beta. And torpedo spread 3. In my Lieutenant Commander Universal with Temp Ops, I'm running Heisenberg Amplifier. I'm running Chronometric Conversion, both for unconventional systems procs, and then I'm running Gravity Well to make sure I can control the map that I'm on. In my Ensign Universal, I'm running Chemosight Lace Weaponry for that damage buff to my torpedoes and also to just build up on my dots. On my Commander Engineering Command Station, I have Emergency Powder Engines so that I can move around the map and reset my evasive maneuvers when I also have the emergency con hologram. So make sure we can move around the map nice and cleanly. We have emergency weapons, emergency powered to weapons, plus 13% bonus weapon damage, and it also is the proc for, as I'm done that again, I keep right clicking instead of left clicking. We have the proc for emergency weapon cycle. We have Eject Warp Plasma 1 for an unconventional systems procs, and what will be on almost every single one of my tank builds, Suppression Barrage 3. Your weapons suppress targets, hit for 20 seconds, minus 50% outgoing damage. So and minus 50 accuracy. So they're doing half the damage of what they should normally be doing, and they also have less accuracy. So there's likely a good chance they'll miss hitting you. So that ends up being the biggest single damage reduction that you could have. Though DPRM can be nice, adaptive emergency systems can be nice, the Guardian console can be nice, running Miracle Worker can be nice, but Suppression Barrage is going to be the single most impactful part of a tank build because of that debuff that it applies to the enemies. And last but not least, Tractor Beam and Scramble Sensors for more unconventional systems procs. Alright guys, quickly I'm going to talk about my bridge officers. So same again, this is a very damage oriented build. So this is, I know I'm going to get some comments. Wow, why are they so expensive? Wow, why are those on your builds? But guys, I can talk through different options. If people are really wanting to run this build and don't want to have a 27 or don't want to try and get one and they don't have one, I can talk you through different options. There's nurses, there's emergency weapon officers, there's like things like Shax and Shax Jankum that has like an engineering buff. There's different options that you can run that are going to be more than sufficient for the build, but I wanted to just show you what I wanted to run, and this is a 27 or 47 for the plus tack buff, so crit severity. So tack 15% chance for a plus 20% crit severity buff. Agent Neural for the healing. The Emergency Con hologram from the Phoenix store for the reset on the evasive maneuvers. Guys, this is on every single one of my builds, so everyone should know this by now. 31 or 47. Side Temporal, which this build's actually taking very, good advantage of. Plus 15%, 15% chance for a 50% increase of damage over time. So this is my dots and everything else. And Temporal, which is my Heisenberg and my chronometric inversion field, a 25% boost to my exotic damage ability, so that's my dots again, for 30 seconds. Next up, we have Tack Temporal. So this is it's perfect ship for this. I am proccing both my improved damage over time by 50% and my improved crit chance by 2.5% for 30 seconds on this build. And last but not least, my Talaxian emergency weapon, not emergency, projectile. Oh, good thing I'm recording this, so we'll make this change on the fly, everybody. This needs to be a energy weapon officer. So this needs to be that one. Not my projectile weapon officer. It needs to be a energy weapon officer. This needs to be my Baku, my plus 1% chance buff to self of crit chance, stacking 3 times. So this is a 3% buff to crit chance. So that's it, everybody. That's the build that I have on the Garrett Command Dreadnought Cruiser, or what I've called the ISS Pundus, showing my appreciation to the good sir. Decker, if you're listening, I know you're just come back out into the world of Stowe, or coming into the world of Stowe, but if you're listening, which probably you're not, big thumbs up to me, and I love this ship, so hopefully it shows in the video. Guys, I'm gonna, at the end of this video, there will be a Hive Onslaught Elite run that I did in this ship with this build. Just a note quickly, the survivability of this build is reliant on the consoles and the Woven console. So what I mean by that is the subspace fracture tunneling console I'm using as much as I can. Use it, use it, use it, use it, use it. And as well, I have a keybind that will activate this when I hit it, and it also clears my target. And with the change in the settings that I have, which I'll show on screen just now, it is these two: only attack if target selected off, and select auto target on attack off. You have those two as off, and you have no target selected. The Woven console won't jump you, but you'll still get the cooldown reduction in combat. So it will unselect and then hit the Woven for me. So every 30 seconds, and even more when I have so many uncon procs, I'm hitting, and I'm just getting all my cooldown reduction back, all my cooldown reduction on these consoles. So I'm having 100% uptime almost on my defensive consoles. And with DPUR, because you can't cool it down once running, it's got a, it does have a bit of a delay, but it means I've got it back a lot quicker than I normally would otherwise. So guys, that's just the big note of this one. If you take it in, remember, you need to be using Woven every chance you can. If it's up for 2 seconds, use the sucker, because once your settings are right, you need to then be you'll still be firing your weapons if you have your settings right, and you just need to be cooling down your consoles, because that's where the survivability comes from. Anyway, guys, that'll be it. I'm going to say thank you for all those who got this far through the video. I know it is long. I know it can be a little bit boring. I know I can speak a little bit fast sometimes. So, guys, I say thank you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section down below. Or if you want to really talk about things, about my builds, join my Discord. There's links to them in the description and in the about of this video, or on my channel, or on my Twitch stream. You can join my Discord any time of the day and ask a question about anything Stowe related or build related, and I will try to answer it the best as I can. Guys, to the Hive run, it wasn't exactly perfect, but I had almost 90% attacks in and damage in. We had one death, but I wanted to show the point on when basically the teammates were doing almost nothing except for one guy, Varod, it still was holding its own rather well. So guys, to the Hive run, and I'll say bye bye, good night, see you later, and we'll see you next video. Bye.
Baby, so cold, sofas denim on them ripped jeans. In my old school, remember when I had a 6-speed. Baby, so cold, she been riding ever since then. Baby, so cold, we gotta find a way to fix it. So I'ma turn the heat up, so I'ma turn the beat up. The party never leaving, no. And she gon' roll my weed up, and she gon' roll the reed up. My shawty never leaving, no.
I saw you, my breath was taking. One shot, I had to take it. No mistakes, this chick the greatest. What I gotta do, I'm trying to see you naked. Told me slow the pace, you a woman, not a race. But the way my heart is beating, girl, I'm feeling out of shape. Green eyes and the skin fair. Wanna move to the beach, but she been there. Living on the road, she don't need a man. Gotta focus on the plan, gotta win here. She buys her own drinks, buys her own things. Don't gotta answer when the phone rings. Got her own accounts on her home. Clean if you touch me, the drug, I'm a dope fiend.
Baby, so cold, sofas denim on them ripped jeans. In my old school, remember when I had a 6-speed. Baby, so cold, she been riding ever since then. Baby, so cold, we gotta find a way to fix it. So I'ma turn the heat up, so I'ma turn the beat up. The party never leaving, no. And she gon' roll my weed up, and she gon' roll the reed up. My shawty never leaving, no. So I'ma turn the heat up, so I'ma turn the beat up. The party never leaving, no. And she gon' roll my weed up, and she gon' roll the reed up. My shawty never leaving, no. Baby, too hot, I can't let you go. Cold as Mexico. Kick your feet up out the Chevy door. Tell me where we go. Remember when I had a pedal on my bike, didn't have no telephone. Spoken body language, and we don't need Rosetta Stone. Baby, you my ride or die, but you riding blind. Baby, open up your eyes, got me by surprise. You know there's some heat between your thighs, and I know I like it. I'ma set it on fire, but you cool as ice, yeah. Baby, so cold, soft as denim on them ripped jeans. In my old school, remember when I had a 6-speed. Baby, so cold, she been riding ever since then. Baby,